Everyone. My name is Ryan Haylock. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Engagements here at Oculus IT. Thanks so much for joining us on this boiling hot afternoon. I hope it's cool where you are. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us today and learn about a little bit about Amazon Web Services and some of the benefits of migrating over there. On today's call, what we'll talk about is I'll give you a brief overview of Oculus IT, a little bit about what we do. And then I'll hand it over to Mike, and he'll give an overview of a number of areas of AWS, their global infrastructure, some more of their services, benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end, we'll have time to do some Q&A with Mike and with me if you've got questions about anything that we do. So for us, Oculus IT has been around since the early days of the cloud. We work with AWS and Azure and pretty much any cloud. We have our own data centers as well. Some of our clients include University of Texas, Austin, Norwich University, Western Governors University. What we do, the scope of these engagements for other clients, we do everything from hosting in AWS or other clouds, hosting in our data center, or in some of the more complicated infrastructures, we can actually host our data center, put things in your data center and in one of the clouds, and we deal with all of the interconnectivity there. Benefit from that sort of architecture, we take our solution engineers, we look at your specific needs, and we can provide a better cost in that scenario where we're using all of our infrastructure combined. For other schools like Western Governors University or John A. Logan College, we can do hosting of your ERP system. We host Banner, we host Genzabar, and we host Colleague and Power Campus, mostly at costs that you won't be able to get directly from those companies or any other hosting company. Some of the other services we provide include infrastructure managed services. That's network monitoring and management, everything down to penetration testing on your network. We can manage servers, virtualization, anything you'd want us to do there. Some of the other things that we do include help desk for your end users. We can do that after hours, on hours, or all the time. We can also provide higher level technical help desk services to your technical engineers should they need a little bit of assistance on a project or on an ongoing basis and you just want somebody in the background to be able to provide some answers. We also provide virtual CIO and IT management consulting services. So if you're looking for a sounding board for some help with strategic planning, tactical planning, or any sort of infrastructure assessments, we can also do that for you. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So before we get started with AWS, just want to highlight a couple of our promotions that we're doing. If you are considering a migration to AWS, we can help you save up to $50,000 on a migration to AWS. All that takes is for you to come on a call with us. We look at the things that you want to migrate, and then we can help defray that cost of migration for you to make it easy. And then the next one is, if you're looking at doing a cloud backup solution, the cost of AWS hosting in Glacier should be on the next slide. All right, so we can put together quotes for you for Glacier, S3, or our own data centers, of course. But so without further ado, I want to go ahead and hop into AWS here. So I want to thank Mike Kuntz, Senior Solutions Architect from Amazon, for being here with us today. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Ryan.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for joining. I'll take a little bit of time here, talk about Amazon Web Services. So regardless of the use case, production workloads, development, test environments that you're looking to move to the cloud, AWS offers flexibility to launch those applications from any geographic region where we have facilities. In the US, we have 4 regions which customers can use to launch servers, manage their backups, and other resources. I'll dive into that a little bit more here. It gives the opportunity to replace your upfront capital infrastructure expenses with a low variable cost. And what we mean here is when you look at a traditional IT model where you need to purchase a physical server and put it in a data center, you would spend thousands of dollars to purchase the server and own it for 3-5 years until it gets old or the lifecycle policy makes it so that you need to bring in a new resource. Using this model on AWS, on Amazon EC2, which we'll talk about, our virtual servers in the cloud, it changes to a variable cost model, and you pay for the compute that you are using. So for example, if you take a AWS server that has 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM in it, the hourly cost for that is 10 cents per hour. The idea here being that you're paying for the servers when they're on. So if you leave that server on for 10 hours, it would be $1. You turn it off. The other 14 hours out of the day, you would not be paying for the compute for that server. Some of the idea how the electricity works. You turn the light switch on and you're paying for it. When you turn it off, you're no longer paying for it. Looking at other areas around our compute infrastructure, we have servers that cost as low as a penny per hour. You can spin up hundreds or thousands of these servers in minutes to deliver results. When we look at AWS customers that have gone and done this, last year, for example, when Villanova was going to the men's basketball championship, their website was hosted on AWS. After the buzzer beater they did, last year's tournament, they saw a significant increase in web traffic. AWS seamlessly scales up, handles all of this traffic, and then scales back down after the event, so you're only paying for what you need. Next slide, please. AWS has been doing cloud services and been in operation since 2006. We currently work with over 2,300 government agencies, 7,000 educational institutions, and over 22,000 nonprofit organizations. We've seen a tremendous growth in public sector, especially in education. Next slide, please. Here's a look at the AWS global infrastructure. It starts off with a region. A region is an area where you pick that you want to put your data, launch your servers, and run your applications. When you put your data into a region, it does not move. Some cloud providers may shard your data across multiple regions inside and outside of the US. In the US here we have 4 regions, and you pick one of those regions, your data will not move outside of those regions. You can move the data yourself if you'd like to, but we will not move your data. Underneath these regions, we have the concept called an availability zone. An availability zone, conceptually, you can think of as a data center, but in most cases, it's actually groups of facilities that make up an availability zone. If you were to take, for example, Northern Virginia region, we call US East 1, it's made up of 6 availability zones. Each of these availability zones are separated, the facilities within, separated by miles. They are on separate physical infrastructure, power infrastructure, and multiple redundant tier 1 ISPs feeding the regions. To put into context the size and scale of the US East 1 region in Northern Virginia, one of our distinguished engineers, James Hamilton, gives a talk about the overall scale and capacity of AWS. The number that he used last year at our conference was over 80,000 individual strands of fiber interconnecting this region. And that's just one region that we have. We currently have 16 across the globe. When you look within the US, I mentioned that the primarily 4 that customers in education will go through and use: Ohio, Northern California, and Oregon. So depending on your geographic location in the US, using a region that's closer to you often makes sense. You can, however, use any of those regions that you want to, or you can use multiple regions. So if you are on the West Coast and you're using the Oregon region, but you'd like to do backup and DR as well to the Ohio region, you can absolutely do that. We have a 5th region in the US, which is appealing to some customers in education, and we call that GovCloud. The main difference between this region and all the other regions is that it is ITAR compliance. So if you are doing workloads that need ITAR compliance, you would be able to launch within GovCloud to meet those needs. Additionally, in the AWS global infrastructure, we have 74 edge locations. These edge locations are used for our CDN and DNS services. Route 53, which is one service we have, is a global DNS service that is 100% SLA on it. It's a bold claim to say that any service has 100% SLA, but we do that with Route 53. The costing for Route 53 is incredibly attractive as well. It is 75 cents per 1 million DNS queries. We have several large educational institutions that are getting out of the business of managing and hosting their own DNS servers and trying to keep them up and maintain them, and moving to AWS. Next slide, please. On this slide, we show an overview of services. AWS currently has over 90 services available for our customers to use. They range from, as we go up the stack, compute, storage, databases, encryption, key management services, application services such as queuing, email, transcoding, developer tools. If your organization is looking to move to DevOps, AWS has a wide range of options to help you. We also have support, professional services, and a very large partner ecosystem that we can take advantage of to help meet your needs. Next slide, please. AWS has a wide range of certifications and accreditations for workloads that matter. We operate under something called the shared responsibility model. What you could take a look at is that the easiest way to look at that, is from the ground to the hypervisor is AWS responsibility, and from the operating system up is the customer responsibility. In some cases, AWS will move further up for services such as RDS, which is a managed database service that we offer, and we will take care of the operating system and the underlying database infrastructure. And partners such as Oculus will also help customers to manage that, where they will act in part of the shared responsibility model for customers and manage the OS, applications, and services. All of these services that we have listed here, SOC 1, 2, 3 reports, etc., are available within a customer's account using a tool called AWS Artifact. For any that are not available, you can always reach out to Oculus or us and we'll provide them to you. These reports are verified and audited by third parties, so you can assure that not only what we're saying is true, but they're externally verified. For customers that are looking to do PHI, HIPAA-related data in the cloud, AWS has the ability to sign a BAA with customers. Next slide, please. So why do education customers love AWS? The first is time to results. When I mentioned the use case of buying a physical server to put in a data center at the cost of thousands of dollars for this server, there's also days, weeks, sometimes months to acquire this hardware. Within AWS, to spin up a Linux or Windows virtual server, it will be on and be ready for you to use in minutes. And you can change that as you need. So if you'd like to start off with a server, say 2 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM, and you realize you need a larger server, you can merely turn the server off, change the size, and increase it. Currently, the largest server we have available is 128 virtual CPUs and 2 terabytes of RAM. So as you can see, we can accommodate very large workloads. We also have instances with GPUs in them for customers that are using video acceleration, advanced neural networking, AI, machine learning, several other use cases. Another reason EDU customers love AWS, the pay-as-you-go pricing model. I mentioned a lot about our compute infrastructure. Storage operates in the same way. Using a service like Amazon Simple Storage Service, or S3 as we call it, you can store your objects and your data in the cloud at 2.3 cents per gigabyte per month. You do not need to commit upfront to a large size or volume. You only pay for what you use and you pay as you go. So if you take and put a terabyte of data into the region, that's $23 for a terabyte of data. It's prorated so that if you would go through and chop that back down to 10 gigabytes of use, you're only paying for what you're using and what you need. Elasticity is another reason that customers love using AWS. Everyone on this webinar can probably identify a spiky workload, a time when you will have several users crowding to your systems trying to get on, whether that's student registration, marketing website, events, donor campaigns, you name it. So many different spiky workloads that exist out there. With AWS, you can easily add capacity. What you have to do today to meet your capacity demands buy as many servers as you possibly can, and then usually add on 10 to 20% overhead in hopes that you don't go over your capacity, because that would happen. What would happen there would be an outage. With AWS, you can just easily add capacity as you need it. We have several use cases on the AWS education blog and website. I urge everyone to go check it out and look at some of the great case studies that we have, what other educational institutions are doing. We have case studies there from University of Maryland, University College, UMUC, Notre Dame, Cornell, and their uses of elastic compute, storage, and also workspaces, which is a virtual desktop we offer. Another reason education customers love AWS, globally accessible, easy to collaborate. When I mentioned the regions, and you pick a region where you want to operate your servers or put your data or operate your workloads out of, to change to another region within the US or outside of the US if you want to, is a fairly easy process to go through. So if you have a school or you have users outside of the US and it makes sense to put resources there, say Edge Network for a website, if you have a large overseas population that views your website, it's very easy to go through and do that. Another reason customers love AWS, security and data privacy. As I mentioned before, security is one of the most important things for us at AWS. Security, operational excellence is our top priority, and we make it that of our customers. From the ground up, every service we build is built with security in mind. And finally, the effectively limitless capacity and scalability. When I mention a service like Amazon S3, it grows and scales to meet your demands as you need it. Well, use cases and customer stories of achieving millions of objects or millions of transactions per second and storing trillions and trillions of objects within S3. Next slide, please. Some of the things that sets AWS apart, experience. In 2006, we started with our first service, S3, and have building since then. Well, we have seen competition grow in the space. It took a lot of competitors years to come into market. We achieved a great head start and lots of experience through this process. The service breadth and depth. As I mentioned before, we have over 90 services to support any cloud workload. A rapid pace of innovation, customer-driven results. 90 to 95% of our product release and features on our roadmap are driven by customer requests and demands. AWS strives to be as customer-centric as possible, and when you, the customer, has something that you would like to see in our services to be improved or added, we take those features and add them directly to our roadmap. We encourage all of our customers to reach out to us directly and let us know of the features that you would like to see. I mentioned the global footprint earlier when we talked about regions. And then additionally, another thing that sets AWS apart is the ecosystem. We have thousands of partners and thousands of offerings in our marketplace. The AWS Marketplace is a list of servers and services that customers can launch into their account. So if you have common tools that you like to use and you vendor related, you can take and launch those out of the AWS Marketplace into your accounts. There's also a wide range of open source product, currently in the thousands. So if, for example, you would like to run a WordPress site within your AWS account, you could go and build the server, build the software, do the installation, or going into the AWS Marketplace, you could simply launch it and be ready to go in minutes. Next slide, please. So here I'd like to talk about some of the use cases we see in education. In the first, teaching and learning solutions and the actual business of education, and then we'll also talk about research on AWS as well. Currently, customers running on AWS include Blackboard and Ellucian, software customers that I think most everybody on the webinar is familiar with. Managed services that they offer, they will partner directly with you, the customer, and AWS as well. Multiple distant learning options, student lab environments, and virtual desktops. UMUC has a webinar that they presented last month on the AWS website on their virtual workspaces environment. This is a virtual desktop application they have that reaches thousands of students across the world. Business and education, the business of education, we see several customers moving wholesale into AWS, picking up financials, student information systems, and migrating them to AWS. We believe in the fullness of time, very few customers will have data centers as we go on. But it's not an easy transition. Nobody can pick up and just move. There's definitely a transition and migration period that happens. A common scenario that most customers will do is start with disaster recovery and backups. Ryan will be talking about that a little bit later. What customers will do is they will take their current backup software, maybe it's running on a disk pool, maybe it's writing data out to tapes, and then point those backups to Amazon S3 and then Glacier. Most common backup software these days supports writing directly to AWS services, similar to how they would go and write to a tape silo or disk pool currently. For those backup software that do not support it, we have appliances that customers can run on-premise that acts as a virtual tape library. So the backup software thinks it is writing to a tape, but it's really a virtual tape that then is pushed up to Amazon S3. Recovery operates in the same way. For research on AWS, we have several customers doing genomics research, statistical analysis, and mathematical modeling. The ability to scale up and do customized HPC workloads per customer using EC2 has been a great differentiator for us. We see lots of customers that will go through, instead of trying to spend millions of dollars to create an HPC environment on campus, go into AWS, spin up thousands of servers to do the research and analysis they need, complete their work, and then turn off all of those resources at the end of the week or day, how long their run takes. And that's it. They don't have to pay anymore at this point because they've gone through and you're only paying for what you use. For more information on research and education, I'd point everyone to the AWS website for education grants. On there, we will take information from the research community, and we issue grants in the form of AWS credits. Customers looking to go through and move workloads over in research should take a look at this. We also have a program called AWS Educate. It is a program that students and faculty can enroll in and sign for and receive credits. We have several cases of schools that are teaching AWS in classroom environments. Carnegie Mellon University currently has a class, CS 1571, I believe it is. The class is based on AWS and cloud workloads. We work with them and several other institutions across the US to teach cloud. Next slide, please. So an overview of these services, and then I'm going to hand this over to Ryan. The first one was Amazon Elastic Cloud Compute, or EC2. These are the virtual machines that you spin up in AWS. Amazon Simple Storage Service, or S3. This is object-based storage in the cloud. Store as much data as you want. Amazon Glacier is a cloud archive. From S3, most customers will then go and push data to Amazon Glacier at 0.4 of a penny. It is a great long-term archival solution. We see several customers removing tape and local disk pools out of their data centers and moving data to S3 and Glacier. Amazon Route 53, the cloud DNS service that I mentioned with 100% SLA on it. Amazon Relational Database Services. What this does is it allows customers to spin up databases on their own that are managed by AWS. AWS will manage the underlying operating system and the database software. This allows the customer to focus now on maintaining the data. DBA is doing jobs around indexing, data maintenance within the tables and the databases themselves. For RDS, you would go through, you would pick your database engine, so MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, and MariaDB are some of the options. From there, you pick the version that you want and the licensing model you want. For the commercial databases that I mentioned, you can go through into a bring your own license model. So if you have existing databases, existing licenses for those databases, you can bring your own license, or you can use a subscription model through AWS to pay for those databases. Amazon Workspaces, virtual desktops in the cloud. I mentioned earlier we have several use cases of customers teaching classes through Amazon Workspaces. The premise here is that labs on school campuses are a valuable resource, the real estate that's necessary to take up IT resources for labs, staffing, as well as the money that's spent is being used and pushed to Amazon Workspaces. The idea here is that students can access these labs remotely whenever they need, wherever they want. And then finally, Amazon CloudWatch for monitoring the AWS cloud resources. With that, I'm going to hand this back over to Ryan.
Great, Mike, thank you so much. And we'll get to some Q&A with you in just a minute here. So I want to encourage everybody on the webinar today, if you've got questions, just type them into the question pane and we'll get them over to Mike in just a minute here. So I want to talk just a little bit about what we can do at Oculus IT to assist you. So, I mean, obviously you've got a choice to either do an in-house migration or to partner with us. And the question is, why would you partner with somebody? And I think, the answer to that is easy from where I sit, and that's we're a consulting partner with Amazon. We've done this for numerous schools. So we've been through it before. We bring that experience, that expertise. We build your project plans for you. We're adaptive to changes in your environment. And we've got this breadth and depth of services and resources on our side. So what that means is if we start talking about an architecture with you, and there get to be some technical questions that I don't have the answer to, you don't have the answer to, I can go back to my pool of resources and pull, say, my Cisco guy or my HP guy or someone who's an expert with these things to help us solve that architectural question. So we bring a depth of technical resources with us to assist you in an implementation. Next slide. So that brings me back to that promo that we were running. If you are at all interested in exploring a migration to AWS, either a full migration or even partial, and you just want to try it out, we are offering, again, up to $50,000 to assist you with that migration. And that gives you the benefit of our services and also drives the cost of a migration down for you. Next slide. And then again, talking about disaster recovery, this is one of the questions that we get often from prospective clients and existing clients. And that's, how do I get out into the cloud? I want to do away with my tape library. And I'm going to talk with Mike about that in just a second, but just wanted to share the cost with you here. It's pretty cost effective when you actually think about buying your own backup infrastructure internally and having to manage tapes or having to pay for a dedupe service versus connecting Glacier and S3 directly to something like a backup exec or Veeam. They all have cloud connectors now. All of these softwares have become cloud aware. And so the cost is actually pretty attractive there. So now I want to hop over to the next slide. We'll get into some questions and some dialogue here with Mike. And Mike, the very first question we often get from people is, why would I choose AWS over Microsoft or Google or any of the other clouds that are out there?
Sure, it's a question we get a lot too. We believe customers choose AWS over the other cloud providers because of the three main factors. The first one is the functionality and pace of innovation. The second is the partner and customer ecosystem that we have, and then the overall experience. I'll talk about these a little bit more here. So in the first one, the functionality and pace of innovation. AWS has significantly more functionality than any of the other cloud providers by a large amount. We have over 90 services and more features within those services. For example, compute, the options I mentioned from 1 CPU to 1 gig of RAM, smaller instances to the larger X1 32X large with 2 terabytes of RAM within this. More options, more functionality for our customers. And we're also iterating at a faster clip than other cloud providers. The second one, the largest customer and partner community, is a real network effect when you use AWS. It's not just the large ecosystem of system integrators and ISVs that we have out there that have built their businesses around AWS, but it's also the large number of customers in every imaginable vertical and industry using AWS services, which helps grow this economy of scale. When I talk about education, which I'm very passionate about, I've been with AWS for 2.5 years, and I've seen a lot of our education customers over time start using AWS. The one thing that they all share is this network of other people in education. I ask everybody that's in this webinar today, please reach out to peers of yours in the industry that are using AWS. Don't take my word for it. The webinar slides that we're going through. Ask your peers if you're at EDUCAUSE coming up or any of these other related industry events. Talk to people about their use of AWS. This large networking effect we have is amazing. And then final reason why people look at AWS over the other cloud providers is the longest experience in the market. We've been doing this over 10 years, a few years before anybody else started doing this, and we've run into every imaginable use case, and we're much better at this today than we were before. There's no compression algorithm for experience, and it's because you can't learn lessons until you get different elbows of the curve and reach the scale that we operate.
Got it. And so a follow-up to that one, though, and again, it's a question we commonly get from people. They'll say, hey, we're a Microsoft shop, so we want to stick with the Microsoft ecosystem. Doesn't it make the most sense for us to go with Azure over AWS? How do you respond to that?
One of the things that we always look at, so first off, all Microsoft workloads, you can run those within AWS, and we have a large customer base that has been moving wholesale away from being locked in by Microsoft. The thing that I think a lot of people go back to is Amazon's principles of customer obsession. Over the course of time, Amazon has put customers first. And when you look at the industry and the traditional history of software vendors and hardware vendors, that there isn't much of a customer-centric focus there. And I think for a lot of customers, they've been down this path of being locked in. They don't want to be locked anymore. They want freedom and open availability.
Got it. And I think one of the things we found too is, especially responding specifically to the Microsoft shop piece, is unless you're doing the offloading piece or you're specifically using developer tools, especially for the small college and university set, then there's actually no real benefit to saying I'm either in Microsoft's ecosystem or not. It's really that much higher level style of tools, and the majority of folks that we talk to are in the small to medium college and university set. So there's just not the value proposition there to say I need to 100% stick with Microsoft. The next series of questions we usually get have to do with security. Now I know you talked about the shared model. I wonder if you could key in a little bit on how access control to servers is handled in AWS.
Sure, there's actually multiple levels of access control within AWS. As I mentioned before, security is our #1 priority, and we help our customers achieve secure environments. For access controls, within an AWS account, there's multiple users that you can create for login to access resources. You can also federate your AWS account. So if you have on-premise an Active Directory or LDAP environment that all of your users, students use to access, using tools like ADFS or Shibboleth, you can actually use your logons from the university, from the schools, to then log into AWS. So you only have one user to manage. From there, once you're in the account, we have something called Identity and Access Management. It's a service that provides fine-grained access around the controls on what people can and cannot do within AWS. So if I would like to go as granular and say that only a user user Joe in my help desk can log into the AWS account between the business hours of 8 to 5 when he's on his shift, and he's only allowed to read only or possibly reboot development servers.
Great. And just a reminder to everybody, we're running up toward the end of the questions that we've got here. If you've got a question you'd like answered, please type that into the questions pane. Mike, last one I've got right here is, it has to do with the backups, and it's why would I choose Glacier over S3 or vice versa when it comes to backing up all of our data? What are the pros and cons of each, I guess?
That's a great question. So what most customers will do is they'll actually start with S3 as the landing point for their data. So if you think about how it would work in a traditional data center model, you may have a backup software running and that will write to a local disk pool, and then you might from there write the data as a tape and then potentially copy that data to another tape and send it off site. In S3 to Glacier in a similar concept. S3 is for your hot, readily accessible data that you need to get back quickly. So you could write your data to a disk pool, and then you would copy it to S3 after a certain amount of days. And then after 30 days, when you no longer need that data as much, you can then archive it to Glacier. The reasons people look to determine which one to use go off of a few key factors. One of those is price, right? So S3 is at 2.3 cents per gigabyte, and Glacier is at 0.4 cents. However, when you move over your data to Glacier, it's not as quickly available. You can go through and pick 3 ways to pull your data back from Glacier into S3 and then back to your premise. You can do an expedited method, which will pull it from Glacier to S3 in a couple minutes, but there's retrieval fees that go along with that. And then there's a longer recovery time if you choose that model to get it back, which goes from 5 to 12 hours and has a lower recovery time, a lower price for recovery back into S3. However, if you have data that you think you're going to be pulling or accessing out of S3 frequently, you should leave it there in S3. Glacier is really there for the archival purpose. So after a month, 2 months, when you don't think you'll actually be readily accessing that data on a regular basis, then customers will archive it to Glacier. Very similar, as I mentioned, the idea of an off-site tape strategy. It's a good way for a lot of people, I think, to understand when you use Glacier.
Got it. Thanks. And I think that's all the questions we've got then. So we'll just wait for 30 more seconds. If anybody has any questions, please type them in now. Otherwise, we can go ahead and get back to having a hot summer afternoon. And so, Mike, I'm not really seeing anything else coming in here. I really want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today and to share all this information about AWS with all of our customers. We were joined today by community colleges, universities, and government sector folks from all across North America. And we really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us today. And thank you to everybody who attended the webinar. If you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. We'd love to provide some answers to you. We can help you with your solution design. And otherwise, we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar or one of our future webinars. Have a wonderful afternoon and a great rest of your summer.